Hey y'all, and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be looking at a chess game that I played recently where I got into some serious trouble out of the opening, but I managed to turn it around and I kept all of my nerves together throughout and every single move. Either way, let's get into it. My opponent starts off the game with knight f3 and I decide, okay, well, what I really wanted to see this game was a Sicilian, right? Because I was trying to work on my Sicilian defense. So I'm like, okay, I know c5 is a move here. I know it's probably fine. I'm going to play c5. It's not going to be in the world. If he wants to play e4, please play e4. That would be amazing. But he doesn't go e4, instead goes g3. And I go knight f6, bishop g2, knight c6, castles. And here is my first move that wasn't entirely accurate, but in all honesty, it's completely fine. In these like ready positions, most of the time I like to kind of copy my opponent. Here, what I should have done, I should have realized, okay, well, this can probably transfer back into a d5 position, a d4, d5 position, so I should have played d5 pretty quickly. Instead, I was kind of treating it like an English, sort of. I don't really know why I was doing this, but in the English, my idea is that I get d6, g6, bishop g7, castles, and I play like this way. But that's only if c4 is on the board. So d5 would have been much more accurate move here, but instead d6 is the move I went for, which is fine, but it's not very good. My opponent, however, goes d3, not really capitalizing on my mistake. If he wanted to do that, he would go d4 and try to argue that, okay, well, now that you haven't played d5, now I can go d4, and now I've kind of tricked you into getting to a better position, which would have been admittedly very, very smart of him. But luckily for me, he goes d3, plays it a little more cautiously as well, in more of a King's Indian attack sort of style. I go g6, e4, bishop to g7, and after the move c3, we've actually transposed back into what I was looking for, which is a Sicilian defense, which is very, very lucky in all honesty. I'm glad we got into this position because these are the positions that I've been wanting to study recently. My opponent, I castle. I don't really doesn't really take too much explanation to explain that move. You want to keep your king safe. Bishop to g5, and after a little while, I was trying to figure out something that I could do here. I was thinking of like even this move e5, but I wasn't sure about this square. I didn't know if like this was a big issue in the position. It probably is. So I didn't play e5. I was thinking about bishop to g4. It's another move that could be going here. And then one other thing that I was thinking about as a more of a long-term plan was that I might have an idea of playing b6 and bishop b7 at some point. But for the moment, I ended up playing the move h6 because, of course, I mean, you're hitting the bishop back. There like is like a decision to go here. Like this could be okay after this position. Like maybe my opponent has something, but it's probably nothing. So I wasn't too scared of that. And of course, if he took on f6, I'm like, okay, well now you give me bishop pair. I would be very, very grateful. He instead goes bishop to e3, which makes sense. Maybe he's preparing some d4 in the future. Could be completely reasonable. And now I have to think of a plan for the long term. The thing that I was really considering was the move b6. I really, really wanted to play this move b6 because it looks like it does everything I want it to do, right? Now I'm defending my center. I'm like disallowing like any like d4 with like serious issues. Of course, he can still play d4, but it won't be as much of a threat nowadays. And I'm getting this bishop onto the long diagonal to kind of circumvent his bishop. And I think that maybe I'm going to like this might be like a better way to like get my rook involved into the game in some lines. And I thought this was really, really interesting if I could get b6 off, but I didn't like this move b6, and I didn't like this for a specific reason. b6 is the best move here, but I was a little bit worried about the move e5, and I just thought that this wasn't that good. But what I missed here is that after d takes e5 and knight takes e5, which is of course what I was scared of, this attack on my knight and my rook, and I can actually play the move knight takes e5, bishop takes a8, and the computers argues here that white has some serious light squared weaknesses with the bishop out of the way, and if I just get the bishop gone permanently, then I can get some good stuff going. Some sample line here goes like c4, knight takes e3, takes, of course c4, the idea is to bring the bishop back, and I'm already crushing with moves like bishop to g4, and you can kind of see it now because he has some weaknesses on the light squares, and there's not really much he can do. Like maybe he can go here, for example, but like this is just already too much, right? already too much. At least I'm winning a pawn here, right? So you can see that this would be pretty good for me, but of course it's a little bit scary to go down that road without really knowing like all the super like intricate ideas of the position. If I knew this idea existed, of course I would go for it, but I mean I don't. So I didn't go for that. Instead, I went for another idea that I'd seen recently, which was the move knight to d7. And now I'm saying, okay, well, what's going to happen is I might put a knight on this square. I'm totally disallowing the move d4 now because d4 is actually I thought d4 was kind of a mistake. It actually completely works here. I just thought this wasn't that good after here's cd and something like e5. And I didn't think this was that good for white because I get f5 very quickly. And I just thought, okay, well, this position I'm probably doing like, okay, I have a big attack coming along the way, and I think it's probably balanced for a human. For an engine, of course, they have ways of figuring out. And actually, you can go knight fd2 and play for f4 yourself here with white. But either way, that didn't happen. And my opponent went with h3, which is an okay move, stopping my bishop from coming here in the future. Makes a lot of sense. I go knight d to e5, which is just a very normal plan. I didn't think it made much sense not to go for here. I don't care about the best move here. It's just putting the knight back. I'm not going to admit I'm wrong. That would be stupid. So I go knight d to e5. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5, and my opponent ends up playing this move f4. And you can already see the makings of like some pretty powerful play by my opponent here, right? Because they have all the pieces coming on this side of the board. They got this bishop staring down. They got this bishop able to come to these squares in the future. They got the queen able to come in pretty quickly, and they got these pawns that are just kind of gonna roar down at my king. And I kind of felt that this was getting a little bit out of hand a little bit quickly, and I'm already in a little bit of defensive mode, but maybe I should have been in more of a defensive mode because I make some inaccuracies here. I go knight back to c6, which is obviously the best move. My opponent goes knight d2, and here I kind of try to stop his attack by starting my own. Just a little bit silly. I have to immediately pivot here to the b6 idea. Like I gotta go rook b8, b6, bishop b7. Actually, rook b8 is for like b5, not b6, and then we go for bishop b7. We gotta go for like this, but I was still thinking that maybe in some universe far off, I might be able to utilize this bishop on this diagonal to get over there. So I didn't go for it, and I instead went for my own attack, which was this move f5. And as you can see by the eval bar, the computer doesn't like f5. The computer doesn't like f5 at all. Because in reality, it's not that good of a move. And I probably should have thought about what I was doing beforehand. My opponent quickly plays knight f3, which is a pretty accurate move. The idea is that they're getting over to this square and starting to pin down my king. And here I make probably my worst mistake of the game. Here, what I really should do is just take a second, take a breather, solidify my structure, and try to pray. Just go into like full lockdown defensive mode and try to play. So I gotta go e6. Really, this is the only move that I can really play because then knight h4 doesn't really do much. I just go king h7. There's no real attack, and I'm doing pretty well. Of course, there's moves like g4 here. Sorry, not here because the knight is hanging, but like in the future, maybe he goes like bishop f2 and g4, for example. All right, like here, g4 could be an issue here for black, and I really just should have defended my position, but instead I got a little too ambitious, and I went with the plan that I had been looking at earlier, with the move b6. And this at this point is not a good move because actually I'm just losing a pawn. I'm just losing a pawn here. There's nothing for me to really do. Of course, the idea of b6 is that I want to put my bishop on b7. There's literally no other idea than that, because, I mean, that's kind of just what I have to do. I thought I needed to get my light squared bishop active some way, and I didn't like it where it was on this diagonal. So I thought this diagonal, if I can trade some of his pieces, especially this bishop, maybe I'd be able to quell some sort of attack. But it doesn't work for a concrete reason, and after knight h4, my opponent immediately exhibits that, because this is just really dangerous for me. Now he's attacking this pawn, first of all, but the real issue with this is that he's going to take here, and he's going to open up his bishop with an attack on my knight and my rook, where he gets another pawn on the g6 square, and it slowly but surely kind of gets out of control. And I'm already starting to see ghosts here with the queen being able to come in at some point, and I'm real worried. I am real worried. I already thought that I was blundering. I probably was going to lose this game, but I kept my head and I played a move that I thought made a lot of sense in trying to help myself survive. I played the move f takes e4, which I thought I had to play. I thought this move was forced because if I didn't do this, then my opponent would just be able to like win the game, right? So it's kind of a bluff though, because if my opponent just takes back with a d pawn, you can see how there's already a threat of a fork with the queen and the king, which is a little bit dangerous. So I probably have to take a second and play like, I guess queen e8 is a nice move here, defending everything. There's even knight takes g6 here. And I mean, just visually speaking, this is very dangerous. I mean, I'm down a pawn here. It seems like I'm not doing too well, but actually I am doing well with queen takes g3. Instead, my opponent takes back with the bishop. And already I'm able to get back into the game. And I played the only move. Of course, this move was also forced. He's attacking my knight, so I have to do something about it. I played d5 very quickly. I have to play d5. If I don't play d5, he's just going to take my knight, or, well, if I played like bishop, let's say I play bishop b7, he's just going to take this pawn for free, right, with the knight and get some pressure here, and I don't have the ability to play d5 and make him take with the bishop, right? So after this, I go d5. My opponent captures on g6, and I think for a little bit, but I end up like stealing my nerves and capturing on h3, and already, of course, this position is completely lost. It's completely lost because, just visually speaking, if we're just thinking properly, my opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that can get involved with the attack. I have 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 pieces that can get involved in the defense. This bishop doesn't really count because it's kind of out of the way and it can't really do much. If we're just doing that, my opponent has one more attacker than I have in defenders and will probably be able to break through at some point. And also, not to mention that these pawns are going to be very strong in the attack as well. So this is going to be very tricky for me if I want to pull this off. My opponent here doesn't play the best move. Queen h5 is the best move, just going fooling on the attack, but he plays rook f2. And I figure out some ways to get some advantages here, and I play the best move. I play queen d7 very quickly. Why is this the best move? Because my opponent is threatening me immediately to try and like get this bishop out of the way, and I need some time to be able to defend it because he's threatening g4. Like he's purely threatening g4, and like let's say he didn't do it. Let's say I played something random. First of all, he doesn't have to play g4, but g4 works on it doesn't work right now because of e5 actually. Well, let's just say queen h5, and he's going to get g4 off eventually. He's going to get some huge attack, and I really just can't like hold off in this. So I go queen d7. Another idea is if he goes queen to h5 here, I thought this wasn't very good because of course I'm able to trap his queen now with bishop to g4. My queen has no defense. This is a little bit of a cool line. Either way, and I set a little bit of a trap here. It looks like my opponent can play this move f5. Why does it look like my opponent can play this move f5? Because it disconnects my queen and my bishop. And he has like 4 defenders of that. 1, 2, 3. He's going to be able to bring in another one soon. That's like basically 4, right? Like that seems really powerful. It seems very powerful. But f5 is not a good move because it would simply give me this square, and you might think, well, that doesn't make much sense because, well, of course, if you're going to capture the bishop, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to still have this attack, and now I'm activating my other bishop. If I can draw arrows, activating my other bishop. But actually, with the inclusion of this move after f5 and trading off this bishop, I'm able to take away some more defenders from this pawn that you just pushed, and there are serious issues if I'm able to trade some more pieces. For example, if I'm able to trade the knight that you put there, there's no more attack, and then I'm just simply up a pawn, right? So I'm quickly able to get some stuff done, and my opponent falls for this. My opponent falls for it and plays the move f5, and actually it's back to equality now, but I wouldn't really say this is equal. In all honesty, this is very, very dangerous for my opponent because I'm already going to be able to get some good play here. I go knight e5 very quickly. And you can see that my opponent is kind of under some serious pressure. The only move for white to keep an advantage here is bishop to h5, simply losing a pawn. Which genuinely is a little bit tricky. Like, you can't go here because, of course, takes, and like e6, for example. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm gonna be able to like win a pawn here, and life is good. Actually, he could win back his pawn, but I don't really believe in this, if I'm being honest. Like, I feel like there's got to be something. Rook f2 here, rook af8, right? Like the queen gets in here. I feel like this is honestly pretty decent. I guess he just trades everything and makes a draw, but whatever. Either way, at the very least, I'm getting rid of some of his play. And he makes another mistake. Queen d2. And black is winning. We're only after one move. My opponent thought that knight takes g6. Knight takes g6. Sorry. Yeah, knight takes g6, knight takes g6. Rook takes f5. And my opponent would get some serious play with bishop takes h6. And I'm sure they stopped calculating here. I'm sure they stopped like saying, okay, well, after that move, I probably have some serious pressure. I don't really see what my opponent can do after that because I'm able to get my other pieces in. I have 3 pieces surrounding his 1 defender. It feels like I'm able to win the game there. But no. After knight takes g6, it's just simply game over. First of all, why can't he play this? Because of queen g4. This is basically just GG's. Like, he really has nothing here. So guys, take with the knight. I take back with the rook. And after bishop takes h6, my advantage balloons. There is nothing that he can do here. I take on f2. He can't recapture with the queen because, of course, he would lose the bishop. So he has, and if he takes back with the king, I mean, queen f5 is there, right? And if you block with the knight, you lose the bishop. But I'm sure that he thought that he was able to get some good play here with the move queen to g5. But after rook g2 check, king to h1, he missed this move. He missed this incredible resource, queen to g4. Utilizing the bishop here, deflecting the queen away. If we trade queens, I'm just going to win the game. First of all, it might look that I'm losing a piece here. Take. Well, at the end of the day, once the smoke clears, I am simply up a piece. I'm simply up a minor piece. I was up a rook, now I'm up a minor piece, and this is just game over. Of course, I have to demonstrate some technique here, but that's just game over, so he can't trade. And, for example, if he goes here, right? King h7, queen takes a8. There's a checkmate. There's nothing he can do. That's just a mate, which is nice, which is pretty nice. If he goes for his own mate, well, then we have queen takes g6, and yeah. So after here, it's almost resignable, but he goes knight takes e7. I go king to h7, only move. He has 2 attackers on this, but my queen defends the bishop through my opponent's queen, and we are winning the game. My opponent goes queen takes d5, and, well, I have to do a couple things here. I can just go queen to g3 and just win automatically on demand. I don't really know why I didn't do that. I guess I just didn't want to calculate everything because there's like some checks there and I gotta be a little bit careful. But I just played rook to f8, moving my rook out of the way, stopping any queen to f2, queen to f7, sorry. And yeah, this is just game over. Bishop takes g7, king takes g7. He has 1 check. Now he doesn't have any more checks. My opponent brings the rook in, and after queen takes g3, there really isn't much for my opponent to do. There really is just nothing. My opponent goes queen to h5 check, and for some reason my opponent didn't go for the most testing variation. After king to g7, he just resigned. He could have played on. After king to g7, this move knight f5 is a little bit dangerous for me, right? Because I have to kind of get into some crazy lines here, like rook takes f5. Rook to e7, right? You get some scary stuff here. You might start seeing ghosts, but as long as you just, as long as you don't play like king f8 and lose, then you're gonna be fine. But of course, this is You have to calculate this, right? You have to calculate this. Either way, this was a very, very cool game. From this position, sorry, where are we? From this position, I mean, like, it looks like white is just going to decimate black, right? It looks like it's just game over. Looks like it's just game over. I have nothing here. But, I mean, if we just take some time and we just continue and think about our moves and just keep a level head, I mean, people just crumble. People just crumble. If they don't have like an easy way to checkmate, it's very, very tricky to play positions like this where the attack might work, but nothing is concrete, and it's very, very scary. And that was a terrible closing speech, but either way, doesn't matter. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys found this entertaining, instructive, all the above. If you did, remember to like, subscribe, turn on the YouTubers tell you to, and yeah, that's it. Good evening and good night.